Okay, Rabbi.
Sorry. Sorry. This guy woke up now. There's no one around. Really sorry.
No worries.
Okay. Okay. Just a second. You know where you're going to sit? Go up over there. Very good. Okay, we begin now. Morning, everybody. Let's begin. The Gemara said yesterday. Okay, so the Gemara said yesterday that all, according to Rav Nachman, Rav Nachman's halacha was, Abaye said in the name of Rav Nachman, that an amma of the sukkah and the amma of the mavui are an amma of 6 tefach. Sorry, or an amma of 5 tefachim, and the amma of kilayim is 6 tefachim. And he said, and the Gemara went through the whole, what does that mean? An amma of 5 tefachim, and the Gemara said, for the height and the width of the mavui, and that is a chumrah. That's a chumrah. Okay. So the Gemara says, the Gemara showed, 1 second, I'm sorry. The Gemara said, there are cases which are coolest. Only go out to the bathroom, okay? So the Gemara says, but there are cases that are coolest, even for a mavui. And the Gemara said that either he doesn't hold it, that's an amma halacha, that's really arba tefachim that halacha, and not arba amos. Or the Gemara said, most amos is where he meant that it's a 5 amma, it's a 5 tefachim amma. Because in most cases that will be the chumrah, but in certain cases you're right, he's moide that it's really a 6 tefachim amma. And then the Gemara wanted to know what that means by sukkah. By sukkah, it's deifin akuma in the height. I'm just going through everything yesterday very quickly. And the Gemara said, but we find that a 5 tefachim amma will be a kula in sukkah as well in regards to Rabbi, in regards to Rebbe's halacha, which is that you need 4 amas by 4 amas. And if the 4 amas that you're making, the 4 amas that you're making are the smaller amas, so that means that Rebbe is going to be lenient now and not stringent. You have to make them larger. So the Gemara says either Nachman didn't hold of Rebbe's opinion, so he was saying it in what he held like the Rabbanon, which is what we pass, and they only need 7 tefachim. So it's not really applicable because it's not talking about amot over there; it's about tefachim. Or he could go like Rebbe, but what he meant was in most circumstances, having an amma being 5 tefachim and not 6 is a stringency, but in the cases like Rebbe, where Rebbe is requiring a larger amount of amot, not just 7 tefachim, but 4 amot, then of course the amma is an amma of 6 tefachim. So now today the Gemara begins as follows. Gemara wants to know what is the amma of kilayim that Nachman said, that one we deal with 6 tefachim. That one becomes a chumrah with 6 tefachim. The Mai Hilchita. So the Gemara says, in what halacha did Rav Nachman say that in Kilayim, the Amma is an Amma of 6 Tvachim and not 5 Tvachim, and there it will be a Chumrah. Okay? So the Gemara says, L'karachat hakerem v'limchol hakerem. Karachat hakerem means the balding of the vineyard, l'mchol hakerem, and to the surroundings, the circle around the vineyard. What does that mean? The Tanan. Okay, so just what is the mission over here? What are we looking for? We're looking for where Rav Nachman said that the Amma is measured by 6 Tvachim and not 5 Tvachim. And he said that that's in Kilayim, in regards to, and it will be a Chumrah. So it's like this: the Tanan, Karachat hakerem, the bald spot inside a kerem. Beit Shammai omrim 24 amot, Beit Hillel omrim 16 amot. Let's get that clear. Karachat hakerem means, imagine you have a kerem, a vineyard, that's in the middle of the vineyard, went bald. There's nothing there. So Beit Shammai says if it's 24 amot, at 24 amot, okay, then you're in business. What does it mean that you're in business? It means you can plant inside the balding spot. Okay? Now, Beit Hillel says 16 amot. I don't know if you have the picture there, Amnon. I'm just going to show you a small picture. Picture for a second. You see that there's a kerem there? In between the kerem and that middle square is something, I don't know if you can read it. It says Avodat HaKerem. See that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's an important thing to see. Try to remember this picture in your mind. Okay.
Avodat hakerem, that's the machloket.
So I'll explain exactly. So Avodat hakerem means like this. What's this about? What's going on over here? Okay. So let's talk about Beit Hillel for a second, then we'll explain Beit Shammai, even though he came first. Because halacha is Beit Hillel. He says 16 amot. What's 16 amot? Is because 4 amot on every side. So, sorry. He says it's because 4 amot on each side, you're not allowed to plant. You're not allowed to plant anything. Why not? Because there's something called avodat hakerem. Avodat hakerem means where they service the kerem. They would take their plows when they would plow or when they would harvest the grapes. They would need a wagon with their horses and their oxen. So they needed that area after the kerem needed 4 amot on each side. Here, north, south, east, west. You always need a row called avodat hakerem. Okay? That's what a kerem comes with. If you don't have, we'll see soon. If you don't have that area, that's not really a kerem. The kerem needs an area. That's all part of the kerem. Now, after that kerem, now you have the middle part. So now why don't you leave me alone and let me plant next to that avodat hakerem. Or if you consider the avodat hakerem part of the kerem, because it's part, so then let me go 6 tfachim, which is the normal measurement that you have to separate from the kerem, and you and plant there. Let me go 6 tfachim away, which is about 1 amma away. Why are you telling me that I still need? How much do you need in the middle? So if the 2 sides, avodat hakerem on this side is 4 tfachim, and avodat hakerem on the, let's say on the east side is 4 tfachim, and on the west side is 4 amot, and 4 amot on the west side. So you already took care of 8 out of the 16. So now the middle square is another 4 and 4, another 8 altogether.
Hello.
Oh, that's not me actually. But hang up, okay?
No, I won't talk.
Really sorry. So So the Gemara says, so these 8, right? Inside the middle, why do you need another 8 according to Beit Hillel? Beit Hillel says like this: look, if the middle area is chashuv enough, because the middle area has a field on this side, okay, of 4 amot, and a field going the other way, which is another 4 amot. Each 4 amot is as chashuv as a field. Okay, it's called a sadeh. But if you don't have 2 sadot, you don't have 2 fields in between, then the makom, that area in between, that area inside, is considered very, very batel. It's nullified to the kerem, because you don't have a field of shtei sadot in between the 2.
I hate you.
Okay, if you just sorry, I'm really sorry. I just want this to go a lot smoother. If you give me 30 seconds. Okay, give it to me.
What's going on, guys?
Boker Tov, Michael.
Okay, so Michael.
Are we started yet or not?
Yeah, sure. Sure, we started. Okay, my brother said that he walked in, my brother from Eretz Yisrael, which I never ever see. He surprised us in Florida for one day. And he came to Orlando, so I'm going to see him this morning. He just walked in now, and he took care of what I had, my little issue that I had. it was a nice.
Rabbi,
Okay.
Rabbi, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You started, how far much have you already started the class? Like, how long ago did you start?
Started about, I don't know, 5-10 minutes ago, but we didn't really advance that much because I was going over yesterday's things. Anyways, so if you listen, you'll be able to get it. He said that in Kilayim, halachas of forbidden mixtures, planting other species inside a vineyard, which is asur in the Torah, lo tizras sadcha kilayim, don't plant your. Okay. So there, lo tizras karmacha kilayim, sorry. So there, the halacha is like this: if you have a balding area inside a kerem, inside a vineyard, every kerem, every vineyard, we said, needs avodata kerem, needs 4 amot of service, which becomes part of the kerem. After that, the middle area, which we showed you the picture, has, you'll see the picture in your Gemara, Michael. Hopefully, I don't know if they have or not. So that area has to have the chashivut, importance, the significance of two different fields. A field, according to Beit Hillel, is 4 amot. So if you have 2 fields inside, therefore, that will be in Mokum Chashuv. That will be considered a very significant area. Since you have a significant area inside of it, then you can plant in that area, and because it doesn't become nullified and just part of the actual vineyard. All right? And that's why you can plant inside that balding area. However, if it would be less than 16 amot, which means you would have 4 for avodat hakerem on this side, servicing of the kerem, 4 on the other side. But in between, you wouldn't have an area of 2 stadot, 2 fields. So it would be too small, and it would become, just since it's surrounded by the kerem, so it would just be part and parcel of the vineyard. And therefore, even though you're very far away from all the vines, you might be like 6-7 feet away, or more, several amot away. You're in the kerem. You're inside the vineyard. You are planted in the vineyard. So it doesn't matter how far you are away from the actual grape vines. As long as you're in the vineyard, it's prohibited. It's asur. And therefore, Beit Hillel says you need to have 16 amot. Now, Beit Shammai is more machmir. Anybody know? Anybody lost? You want me to? I see that.
Yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea what's going on, Rabbi. I'm about to go and start my class somewhere else, so I can't just jump into the middle of this. I can't.
Okay, so we could go over it again.
Yeah.
Start again. The Rav Nachman taught us that in Kilayim, regards to Kilayim, the Amma is 6 Tvachim Amma. It's a 6 Tvachim Amma. One, right? You put 6 fists. That is the Amma that we, in regards to the halachot of planting inside a vineyard. Now, what does that mean? You can't plant inside a vineyard. We know that. Halacha, that's a biblical prohibition. Lo tizrak kamacha kalayim. Now, whenever you have to measure amounts, like as we've shown you in this Mishnah, I'll say it again now. The way to go, the way to measure, and it's going to be a chumrah, it's going to be a stringency, is with amot that are made of 6 tfachim. 6 tfachim, not 5 tfachim, like we said by the halachot of mavui and eruvin. The height of the mavui is 6 tfachim, all the amot, and all the amot in width. When we said 10 amot wide, we meant also 5 tfachim. But in Hilchot Sukkah as well, same thing, Hilchot Sukkah. Heights and everything was always 5 tfachim. But when it comes to kilayim, planting in a vineyard, planting in a vineyard, the amot are 6 tfachim amot, not 5 tfachim amot. Okay. Now, so far so good. So you might ask, what do you mean? When do we ever have halachot of amot in kilayim? What case are you talking about? And the answer is, there's a case number 1. It's called karachat hakerem, the bald spot inside the vineyard. I don't know if your Gemarot have pictures of what this looks like, but in case you don't, let me show you a small picture, and then you see this picture here? Are you able to see it? So first you have the vines all around. Then you have a little area before you get to that middle spot. That's called avodat hakerem. That's called servicing the kerem. Every vineyard, part and parcel of the vineyard, was the service area. The area which you needed your oxen and your horses either to plow for the vineyard or to harvest. So those 4 amot, you saw that little spot, a little like roadway with the. Okay, so that's part of the kerem. Now, okay, so you'll say, okay, very good. So the kerem ends there, the vineyard ends right there after that service area. So why can't I plant some other species right in the middle? In that little middle area, that middle square. And if you tell me because you're right next door to the kerem, because even that service area is rendered as vineyard, fine. So I'll move over 6 tfachim, because that's the normal measurement, the normal amount that you have to distance yourself one species to the species of the kerem. Okay? So fine, so I'll distance myself. So the answer is you can't do that. Why can't I do that? Because the middle area, the answer is the middle area is so small, unless it's not. We'll talk about how large it has to be significant and independent. But as long as it's not large enough, it's insignificant and it's dependent and not independent. It's dependent on the kerem, and it's really it's just batel to the kerem. It's nullified. So even the middle area is all kerem. It's vineyard. You can't say, oh, well, this is another area. This is its own area. It's not. It's too small. It's too insignificant. Okay? And therefore, what Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel are looking for is a large area of land in between, which we can now render as independent of the kerem. How large does it have to be? Says Beit Hillel. We'll start with Beit Hillel because he's the first opinion. He's the second opinion, but he's the halacha, sorry. Beit Hillel says it's 16 amot. Why? Because let's say you look at any side, okay, here's the picture again. If you look at any side of the kerem, we're looking at this picture right here. Any side has the service area. Let's say the east side has that service area of 4, and the west side has the service area of 4. Altogether, that's 16, that's 8 amot. Okay? Now, the middle area, in order for it to be independent, it needs to be the size of 2 fields, 2 sadot. How large is each sadeh? Each sadeh is 4 amot. So therefore, I need another 4 amot on the east side of field, and another 4 amot on the west side of a field of empty area. And now I can confidently say I have 2 sadot after the kerem ends. Oh, if you have an area of 2 sadot, so now it's independent of the kerem, it doesn't become nullified to the kerem, and therefore I can plant in that middle area. Beit Shammai differs with Beit Hillel on, Rashi says 2 pshat. Either Beit Shammai says 24 amot. That means that Beit Shammai is requiring another 8 amot. And the reason is because Beit Shammai says that every field actually is 8 amot and not 4 amot, which results in the middle area having to be double the size of what Beit Hillel said. Instead of 4 amot and 4 amot to have 2 sadot, you'll need 8 amot and 8 amot. Right? To be considered 2 sadot. So the middle square would be 16, plus don't forget the 2 avodat hakerems on the side, which would be another 8. Hence, you get to 24. Another reason why that perhaps Beit Shammai argues with Beit Hillel, Rashi said, is because the avodat hakerem, he doesn't argue about the size of a field. The size of a field is really 4 amot according to Beit Shammai. So the middle area, he agrees, in order for that middle area to be considered 2 sadot, 2 fields, all you would need is 8 amot altogether, 4 amot to one side and 4 amot and then the other side. That's fine. But the servicing of the kerem, that area, that road, it's that he argues with. And he says that needs 8 amot instead of 4 amot. So it's either that he argues about the fields or he argues about the service, but whatever it is, he's going to be adding 8 amot. Okay. So the Gemara says now. Okay, that's number 1 machloket. Mechol hakerem Beit Shammai omrim 16 amot, Beit Hillel omrim 12 amot. What about surrounding the kerem? Surrounding the kerem is another case, and we'll describe it in a moment. The halacha is Beit Shammai says 16 amot, and Beit Hillel says 12 amot. So now the Mishnah explains. Ezuhi korachat hakerem kerem shecharav emtza'ito. What is karachat hakerem? A vineyard shecharav emtza'ito, that its middle was destroyed. And now we are judging and weighing in on whether that middle area that was destroyed lost its gained independence or is still part of the Keren. So it says, don't play with the light, okay? So, if there's no 16 amot inside of the vines, don't bring any other species there. But if there were 16, then what you do is, before you start planting, you first measure out 4 amot for the service, because the service of the road of the kerem is part of the kerem. There's no way you can plant there. Then the remaining 8 amot inside, 8 by 8, v'zorei tamotar. Okay, this is then you okay. Ve'zeu mechol kerem. And what is the case of mechol kerem? Mechol literally means like a circle, like a dance around the kerem. Is ben kerem legoder, between the kerem and the gader. Meaning, let me show you the picture in case you don't have it. Do you have the picture there? In the English art school? Okay, so let me show you. Right. This is the opposite. This is the inverse. Basically, you have a picture. The middle part, that greenery, that dark part, is the actual vineyard. Okay? Now, next to that area, next to the area right here, let me show you that again. Let me just make myself bigger so I can do it better. Hold on a second. No, it's not working. Okay. Anyways, so you have that little white area right after the middle part, which is the avodat haker. Okay. Then you want to plant some other species. You see those rows of other species inside over there? Yeah. And then you have a gate surrounding the whole area. Okay. So now the halakha is like this. The 4 amot right next to the gate, nobody would plant there. Why not? Because if you plant there, you ruin the gate. Okay? So those 4 amot you need for the gate's maintenance. Then, if you have another 4 amot inside in the middle, okay? And then another 4 amot for the service road. So altogether, 4 amot to maintain the gate, 4 amot of empty land, and then 4 amot of service road next to the inner vineyard. Then the halacha would be that that empty space is plantable. You can plant it. Why?
What is that planting place?
Why? Because now it's considered chashuv enough. It's a significant area that doesn't become nullified to the actual keren. Don't plant anything. You plant the rest of it. Now, what would Beit Shammai hold? Beit Shammai is machmir. Beit Shammai says in Mechol HaKerem, Beit Shammai says 16 amot. He adds another 4 amot, and we know why. As we said before, whatever we said before about Beit Shammai, you apply here. Either because the service road needs to be double the size, or because the field inside the middle has to be 8 amot instead of 4 amot to be considered a field. But if you want to plant in that middle area, that area between the fence and the actual vineyard, you need to have 4 amot of service, 4 amot on the other side of maintenance of the gate, just empty area, And then in between those two areas, you have another 4 amot. In those 4 amot, you can plant. So now, everything we spoke about, all these amot that we've been speaking about till now, what Rav Nachman was saying was that you have to be machmir and use the largest amot, which are amot of 6 tfachim. And why is that a chumrah? Because the larger the amot are, the more area you need to distance your new species from the kerem. So the Gemara asks, okay, so that's what it means. That's what Rav Nachman meant. So the Gemara says, really? So you're telling me, Rav Nachman, that the amma, you're telling me now, says Rav Nachman, that the amma that, says the Gemara, that the amma that Rav Nachman spoke about would always be a chumrah if you use the 6 tfachim amma, and if you use the 5 tfachim amma, it would be a kula. As the Gemara, there's cases in Kilayim where if you use the larger amma, the amma of 6 tvachim, you would actually be lenient. And in order to be stringent, you would have to use the smaller amot. What's that case? If you have a vineyard that is planted on less than 4 amot, meaning the rows, you have one row of vines, the next row of vines, and you really need 4 amot in between each row, because every row needs a service road. Every row needs a service road. How are you going to plant, and how are you going to plow, and how are you going to harvest the grapes without a service road in between each row? Therefore, the proper way to plant vineyard would be to have 1 row of vines, then 4 amot, then the next row of grapes, okay? But he didn't do that. He had, for example, 5 rows, just imagine 5 rows of grapes, of vines, and in between the 5 rows, he had 3 amot, not 4 amot. He didn't have a proper service road. That's called avodat hakerem. So there's a machloket Chachamim and Rabbi Shimon. Okay? So the Chachamim say that what you do is like this. Let's say Rabbi Shimon first. Rabbi Shimon Omer, eno kerem. This is not a kerem. You're allowed to plant there. Why? Because it's not a kerem because it wasn't planted properly. It doesn't have the proper service roads. And therefore, what you can do is like this. A kerem needs to be planted properly, and then it's rendered as a real vineyard. And now all the halachot of the Torah and the prohibitions are applied to it, meaning don't plant inside a vineyard. But let's say I don't have a proper vineyard. I just have some grapes growing. Then all I need to do is distance my wheat, for example, 6 tfachim. And once I distance the wheat 6 tfachim from the vineyard, from the vines, from the actual grapes, I'm in business. That's what Rabbi Shimon's opinion is. He says, Eino kerem, this is not a vineyard, and therefore I could just distance myself from the grapes 6 tfachim, and I can plant there. So in our example, I know there's a lot of numbers today, and they're technical, but that's what it is. That's what this part of Torah has. So just try to concentrate for a minute. If you have 5 rows, it's very simple. And in between each row, there was only 3 amot, not 4 amot. So it's not a proper kerem. So in 3 amot, Rabbatai, there are many tfachim, right? Because every amah is either 5 or 6 tfachim. So you have anywhere between 15 to 18 tfachim. So Rabbi Shimon says, plant anywhere you want in between one row and the next. Because none of these rows are properly planted, and none of them have a halachic status as a real vineyard. And therefore, as long as you distance your wheat 6 tfachim away, you can plant it. The Chachamim say, no. This is a vineyard. You know why it's a vineyard? What do you mean? I don't have proper service roads. The answer is, since you don't have any proper service roads, you're bound, you're for sure. Ultimately, you will, in the future, whether it's today or tomorrow, you will uproot the middle rows so that you have a proper service for the outer rows. For example, if you have 5 rows, just listen to this for a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in between row 1 and 2, and 2 and 3, and 3 and 4, and 4 and 5, there are only 3 amot to service the keren, for avodat keren. So what you do is, you look at the second row from the right side, and the second row from the left side, which would be row, let's say 1, 2, and 4. Row 2 and 4, as if you uprooted them, because you soon will uproot them, and therefore you're only left with 3 rows: 1, 3, and 5. Now you have 6 amot in between row 1 and row 3. Imagine that row 2 wasn't there anymore. You eradicated it. And now row 4 again was eradicated. You ripped it out. So now you between row 1 and 3 and between row 3 and 5, if it would be empty area between 1 and 3, there will be 6 amot. And then again between row 3 and 5. So you have a proper keren, you have a proper vineyard. And now you can't plant. You can't plant inside. Okay? So you look at the row 2 and 4 as if they're not there. Okay, that's the shita of the Chachamim. But the Gemara's question on Rav Nachman is really coming from Rabbi Shimon. According to Rabbi Shimon, what did he say? If there's no 4 amot, if you don't have a proper avodat keren between row 1 and 2 and 2 and 3 and 3 and 4 and 4 and 5, you didn't plant it properly. Since you haven't planted it properly, it's not rendered as a proper vineyard. And as long as you distance a few tvachim, 6 tvachim, which is the normal shiur, you can plant any other species. So now, what would be a chumrah for Rabbi Shimon and what would be a kula? If when he said that if you don't have 4 amot between each row, kerem anatua pachot me'arba amot, right? Kerem anatua al pachot me'arba amot, less than 4 amot. According to Rabbi Shimon, when would those 4 amot be a chumrah and when would they be a kula? Well, if they would be 6 tfachim, okay, so they will be a kula. Why? Because Rabbi Shimon says it's not a kerem. Why? Because, for example, 6 tfachim times 4, right? You need 4 amot. Rabbi Shimon says if you don't have 4 amot, it's not considered a proper vineyard. So that means if you don't have 24 tfachim, you don't have a vineyard, and now you can plant whatever you want inside as long as you're 6 tfachim away, according to Rabbi Shimon. But so that would be a very great kula. As long as you don't have 24 tfachim in between each row, which means you don't have 4 amot in between from row 1 to row 2, you can't, as long as then you could plant inside, says Rabbi Shimon. He says the kula, because you don't have a proper vineyard. However, according to Rav Nachman, that we always go the chumrah, in order to go the chumrah now, it would be better to say, it would be proper to say that an amma is 5 tfachim. Because then what Rabbi Shimon would be saying, the chumrah is, if you don't have 4 amot between row 1 and row 2, and 4 amot, the amot are measured as amot of 5 tfachim, which would be 20 tfachim altogether for those 4 amot. Then Rabbi Shimon says, if you don't have 20 amot, 20 tfachim between row 1 and row 2, then you don't have a vineyard and you can plant. But if you say the amma is 6 tvachim, then he's allowing another 4 tvachim in between. He's saying if you don't have 24, you can plant. So therefore, making the amot larger now is actually a leniency. So the Gemara is asking, how can you tell me that it's always a chumrah to say in kilayim that the amma is the larger amma of 6 tvachim? According to Rabbi Shimon, the larger you make the amma, the greater the leniency. So the Gemara answers, Kirabanan da amri havi kerem. Okay, Rav Nachman wasn't going like Rabbi Shimon. Rav Nachman was going like the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan were saying a chumrah. The Rabbanan were saying that even if you don't have 4 amot, we view it as if you do have the 4 amot. Since you're anyways ultimately going to destroy those middle rows, therefore, according to the Chachamim, this leniency doesn't apply. So they're being stringent. And therefore, the only amot that Nachman was really speaking about in Kilei HaKerem were the amot that we spoke about before in the Karachat HaKerem or in the Mechol HaKerem. And they are always l'chumra, the larger you make them. The Ibaytem Olam Rabbi Shimon. The Rav Amot Ka'amar. This is a similar answer, same answer we said yesterday for Sukkah and Mavui. The Gemara is answering, really, Rabbi Nachman was saying, like Rabbi Shimon. If he was going like Rabbi Shimon, so why did he say that it's always a chumrah to have the larger amma? In certain instances, like here with Rabbi Shimon, the smaller amma would actually be a greater chumrah. The Gemara answers, V'rov amot kamar. He spoke about the majority of the cases. In the majority of the cases of Kalayim, like in Mechol HaKerem and Karachat HaKerem, there, the larger you make the amma, the greater the stringency. However, for Rabbi Shimon, there are cases where Rabbi Nachman would agree that you went lechumra by Kalayim by making the amma smaller, namely here in Rabbi Shimon's case. The Rabbi Mishmei de Rav Nachman Omar, now that was all Abai. Now Rabbi Mishmei de Rav Nachman Omar kol amot be'amma bat shisha. Ela halalu sochakot v'halalu atzevot. Rabbi said in the name of Rav Nachman an entirely different halacha, which means that Rav Nachman never spoke about 5 and 6. Rav Nachman spoke about the size of the 6 tvachim. Of course, the amma is 6 tvachim. The amma is 6 tvachim, even in Sukkah and Mavui. Yesterday we said in the name of Abaya that by Sukkah and Mavui, in order to be a chumrah, the amma is 5 tvachim. But Rabbi said that's not what Rav Nachman said. Rav Nachman always said 6 tvachim. Okay, so what's the difference between Sukkah and Mavui versus Kilayim? The difference is what type of tefach. A tefach, Rabotai, is 4 fingers. Dalet etzbot. The height, the width, 4 fingers. Okay? But there are 2 ways you can make your fist. You can make 4 fingers. You can make them sochakot or atzevot. Sochakot means laughing, smiling. Atzevot means, on edge, nervous, tight. So if you make them tight, it's exactly 4 fingers. But if you let go a little bit and there's some space between, then you gain another half a finger. Okay? You gain half a finger. And if you do, okay, so now, if I build an amma by putting 6 of these, 6 tvachim, so what you could really gain, if you make them sochakot, is a half a amma to each one. Okay? So a half amma to each one is another 3 fingers. Excuse me, did I say half amma? Half a finger. If you add a half a finger to each tefach, you do that 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in each one of those tefachim, I added half a finger because of that space, because he was laughing, so to speak. That fist was laughing and he was relaxed. Then you're adding half a finger half a finger times 6 is another 3 fingers, which is half of a tefach. Okay? So therefore, what Rav Nachman said is as follows. The amot of kilayim, in halachot of kilayim, are stochakot, are l'chumra, and you want to go l'chumra, you make them laughing, and you add that half a finger. But the amot of sukkah and mavoy, in order to be machmir, you want to make them as small as possible. So he's agreeing that they have to be 6 tefachim across the board. They're always 6, whether we're talking about kilayim or sukkah or mavui. But in order to be machmir in sukkah and mavui, we'll make them as tight as possible. And in order to be machmir by kilayim, we'll make them as relaxed as possible. That's what Rav Nachman differentiated between sukkah mavui and kilayim. So frek the Gemara, how could you say that? Meitvei. There's a brighter that says kol amot she'amru chachamim be'ama bat shisha uvilvad shelo yihu mechuvanot. As long as they're not mechuvan. So the Gemara says bishlam l'rava ki echad l'haven halol l'stochakot v'halol l'atzivot. Fine. El l'abaya kasha. The Gemara is now asking a kasha really on Abaya. The Gemara's kasha is like this. Not on Rava. On Rava, this brighter is beautiful. The brighter says everything is 6 tvachim. That's exactly what Rava said in the name of Nachman. Even by sukkah and mavu, it's 6 tvachim. Uvilvad, as long as shelo yihu mechuvanot, which means that they're not always mechuvanot. Meaning, in regards to sukkah and mavui, they are mechuvanot, they're exact. But, or he means shelo yihu mechuvanot means they're not always exactly the same. Meaning, in regards to sukkah and mavui, it's always 6. It's 6 tvachim across the board, but it's not going to be exactly the same 6 as in kilayim. In kilayim, they'll be a little bit larger, the 6, and the 6 in sukkah and mavui will be a little smaller. But according to Abaya, it doesn't make sense. Because Abaya said that not all the amot are bat shisha tvachim. The Braita starts off, kol amot she'amru chachamim be'ama bat shisha tvachim. That's not true. According to Abaya, that's only true in regards to kilayim. But in halachot of sukkah and mavui, the amma is actually 5 tvachim. So this Braita seems to contradict Abaya. Omer l'cha Abaya, eimo, amat kilayim be'ama bat shisha tvachim. Okay? What it's speaking about is only in amot of kilayim. This Braita is not speaking about the whole Torah. In kilayim, all amot are 6 tvachim. So then how do you read the second half of the Braita? Uvevad shelo yihu mechuvanot, meaning, as long as they are not exact, meaning, in kilayim they're always 6, but they're not tight. They're relaxed. They're another half of etzba for each tefach. So the Gemara says, "V'hamid the katani sefer Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer kol amot she'amru chachamim b'kilayim be'ama bat shisha ulevad shelo yihu mitzumtzamot michlal d'tana kamel kol amot ka'amah." Says the Gemara, you can't really interpret the chachamim this way, this shita, because Rabbi Shimon Gamliel argues and he says all the amot that chachamim said in kilayim, suddenly he mentions kilayim, are 6 tefachim, as long as they're not tight. They're sochakot. Now, if Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is saying that means the Chachamim didn't say that. He's arguing with them. That means that the Tanakama is saying all amot. You can't interpret the Tanakama to mean the amot, all the amot of kilayim, because that's what Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says. Obviously, the Tanakama, when he said kol amot, he meant all amot, even by sukkah and mavui, are 6 tefachim. So the Gemara is proving that the proper way to read the first opinion here is the way that Rava would read it. And it means across the whole Torah, the amot are 6 tvachim, not the way Abaye explained Rav Nachman. Omalach Abaye, the lav mi ikra Rabbi Shimon Gamliel the koi kavasi. Wait, that much you agree with me that Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is definitely saying what I just said in the name of Rav Nachman. That the amot of kilayim only are 6 tvachim. But the amot of the rest of the Torah might be 5 tefachim. And that's what I said in the name of Rav Nachman. So I know the Amri Rav Shimon Gamliel. I that explained Rav Nachman's words, I was going with Rav Shimon Gamliel. Rav Nachman was going with Rav Shimon Gamliel. And I agree with you that your diuk from the Seifa, from Rav Shimon Gamliel, is correct. And the Chachamim argue. And the Chachamim hold that all Amot are 6 Tvachim, even by Sukkah and Mavui. And that's not what I said, but at least I have someone that someone's opinion that we're going like. That's Rav Shimon Gamliel. So the Gemara says, La Abaya Vadet Tanohi. According to Abaya, Rav Nachman's statement is controversial. And Rav Nachman is only saying it according to Rav Shimon Gamliel. And obviously in the Braita, the Chachamim argue. But L'Rava Milema Tanohi. But according to Rava, do we have to say that this is a machloket? Well, seemingly it is, right? It's a machloket if all amot are 6 tvachim, or only the ones like I'm showing on this is only kilayim. But the Gemara says maybe perhaps for Rava you can say like this: Amalach Rava Rabbi Shimon Gamliel ha'atalashmin on amat kilayim lo yitzamtzem. That Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is not coming to argue with the Tanakama. He's just saying as follows: you said all amot are 6 tvachim, and you meant all amot across the Torah, which is exactly what Rava said. I agree with you, says Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. They are. Rava would love to make everyone hold like this, right? Because Rava says that's what Rav Nachman said. So what did Rabbi Shimon Gamliel say? Why did he mention only Kilayim? Says Rava, he mentioned Kilayim just to explain. He's saying, look, they're all 6 tvachim, like Rava explained Rav Nachman. But the ones in Kilayim are a bit different. Because those 6 tvachim, Amat Kilayim lo yitzamtzem. Uvilvachu lo yu mitzumtzemot. So the Gemara says, if that was Rabbi Shimon Gamliel's point, just to explain the Chachamim, v'leima Amat Kilayim lo yitzamtzem. Be'amat bat shisha lemutei mai. Why would he have to then repeat that the Amat of Kilayim is 6 tvachim? If he's just coming to interpret and explain that the Kilayim ones are a bit different, albeit that they are 6 tvachim, but they're just a little bit larger in their 6 tvachim, why would he have to mention that they're 6 tvachim? Meaning, the way that we interpreted Rabbi Shimon Gamliel before is a little bit sharper, because he said, all the Amot HaChachamim said in Kilayim are 6 tvachim. That's redundant. That's not your point, according to this explanation. Your main point is that the Amot in Kilayim, which we already know are 6 tvachim, because he's not arguing with the Chachamim. The Chachamim said all of them are 6 tvachim, are not mitzumtzam. That's what all he should have said. So the Gemara says, Lav lemute amat sukkah ve'amat mavui. Doesn't it seem likely that what he's trying to say is that it's only the Amot of Kilayim that are 6 tvachim, but not the Amot of sukkah and mavui? Lo. The Gemara says, Limute amma yisoiv ve'amma soiviv. He is saying, you're right, it's a good diak, says the Gemara. He is definitely mentioning he is definitely insinuating, right, and indicating that there are some amot in the Torah that are not 6 tvachim. But he doesn't mean to argue with the Chachamim in regards to the what? To the Sukkah and Mavui. Rather, he holds that even by Sukkah and Mavui, they're going to be 6 tvachim. So what is he coming to exclude? The Ute Amma Yisod the Amma Sovev. What's that? The Amma Yisod and Amma Sovev are different parts of the Mizbeach. Dichtiv, I'll explain it after the Pasuk. Ve'ele midot ha-Mizbeach be'amot. There's a Pasuk in Yechezkel. These are the measurements of the Mizbeach in Amot. Amma v'tofach. Every Amma this is how we interpret the Pasuk. Every Amma in the Mizbeach was an Amma v'tofach. An Amma and a little bit. That means the largest Amma you can make it. Which would mean that they're made up of 6 tvachim amot. Amma v'tofach means 5 tvachim and another tefach. 5 and 1 is 6. So the pasuk is actually telling you it's a 6 tvachim amah. Besides the following parts of Mizbech. The chekama, the amarochav, ugvulal svatas saviv zeret ha'echad, v'zeh gav ha'mizbech. There are 3 parts of the Mizbeach that are exceptions to this rule. And their amah will be 5 tfachim. And I can show you the picture. I don't know if you have the picture. But basically, the bottom base of the Mizbeach was called the Yesod. It was 32 amot by 32 amot. The next part was a bit smaller. It's like you build this on top of this. You see these two, the Chumash on top of the Gemara. So the bottom part is 32 amot. The next part of the Mizbeach is called the Sovev, because the Kohanim would walk on this. And then the last small part would be if you put this on top of that, right? And that's the actual Mizbeach. Okay? That's the little small part was the actual Mizbeach. And on top of that, there were 4 corners. Okay. So basically, every time you measure amot, you're trying to get 10 amot in height. Okay? Every amah that you measure is an amah of 6 tvachim. And how does the Torah describe that? The pasuk and the Rabbi describe that? Amah vatofach. 1 amah of 5 tvachim, vatofach and a 6 tefach. Besides, chek amah, amah rochav, and gvula svatas saviv zeret ha'echad. And what that is I'll show you the picture. You'll see it. Some cheating over here. It's very, very. You see the picture of the Mizbeach? Okay. So now, the height here of the Yesod, the bottom base is 1 amah high. That 1 amah, that height of 1 amah, is an amah of 5 tfachim. That is one of the exceptions, okay? The first one. The next 5 amot, okay, what you had like this. The bottom base was 1 amah high. The next part was 5 amot high. That's 6. The next part, which was called the actual Mizbech, was 3. That's 9. And then the keren, the corners were 1. So altogether you had 10. So basically the bottom, the Yesod of the Mizbech, the height of it was 1. The top corner was also 1 in height. Both the bottom and top heights of 1 amah were measured by 5 tvachim, not 6 tvachim. How do I know that? Because the pasuk, when it says v'chek ha'amah, chek ha'amah says the Gemara zeh yesod. That's the height of the yesod. Okay, the reason why it's called chek, I don't know exactly why. It's like the chek, the pouch, the lap where it sits on. Okay, and therefore we're almost done. We're behind, but B'ezrat Hashem, we just stop at the 2 dots here. Baruch Hashem, the next Gemarot are pretty easy, so maybe we'll be able to catch up one of these days. So that was 5 tachim, and the next part, the Amar Rochav Zestovev. This part I didn't tell you yet. That is the middle part. I'll show you, let's say, here. This is the Mizbeach part, right? So how much more was the Sovev sticking out of the actual Mizbeach? 1 amah. This 1 amah was also measured by 5 tvachim amot, not by 6 tvachim. That is what we call amah rochav, the width of that amah, zestovev. Okay? Ugvulal svatas saviv elu akranot. Then the third exception was on the corners themselves. Those top corners, they were 1 amah high and 1 amah wide. So what you do is you put your pinky, okay, this way, and from the middle of the corner, you put a pinky this way, and then you put a pinky that way. From the middle, you have a pinky going each way because it says v'zeret echad, and the pinky is half a amma. So if you had half a amma each way, that is the width and the height of your kranot. 1 amma by 1 amma. That is also only an amma of 5 tefachim. And the last exception, the fourth one, is the small mizbeach haketoret inside the sanctuary, inside the heichal, which was made out of gold. The top part was 1 amma by 1 amma. That 1 amma by 1 amma was measured by 5 tefachim. That is the, and that is where Rabbi Shimon Gamliel came to exclude and said, he said, those amot are not 6 tefachim. Those amot are 5 tefachim. But all other amot in the Torah, Rabbi said in the name of Nachman, and he's saying that Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is agreeing with the Chachamim in the Braita. Sukkah, Mavui, Kilayim, they're always 6 tefachim. Now, really, people have to get going. I don't know if you have to get going or not, but we're very behind. I happen to have some time now. Should we continue now or should we hold it for tomorrow? Do you have to go? You have to go, Daniel? But should I just continue now and you'll pick it up later?
Okay.
Yeah, can I do that?
Yeah.
Great to
Whatever
see
you want.
It will be on the video. It will be on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna continue now, if you don't mind, because otherwise we're gonna really fall behind. And just to make it a little calmer, it's much easier the following Gemara out. So I think you'll be able to get. Okay. Thank you. Have a great day. Okay, just 1 second. Just 1 second. Okay, sagt der Heilige Gemara, Rab Chia ben Ashi, Rab Shiurin, Chatzitzin u'Mechitzin, Aloch l'Moshe Sinai. The Shiurin that the Chachamim gave for each thing. For example, the measurements of Kizayit, right? If you eat a Kizayit of Chazir, you get Makot. Or a Korban, right? All those Shiurin are Aloch l'Moshe Sinai. Chatzitzin interposes chatzitza, which disqualifies, let's say, an immersion in a mikveh. You can't. It's not a good immersion because there was something between you and the water. All those halachot are halacha l'moshe v'sinai. Umechitzin and halachot of partitions, meaning we'll explain soon. But for example, that partitions have to be 10 tefachim high. In order for them to be considered a real partition, mechitza, that's all halacha l'moshe misin. Okay, so the Gemara says shiurin v'iraisahu. What are you talking about? Says the Gemara, why are you telling me it's halacha l'moshe misin? We know it from a pasuk. Dichtiv, Eretz Chita U'Sora. We know that pasuk, a land of wheat and barley. Gefen teina v'rimon, Eretz Zeit Shemen Udvash. The Omer Rav Chanan kol hapasuk hazeh l'shiurin nemar. This entire pasuk was said to teach you shiurin. How does it teach you shiurin? Number one, chita. You remember having this? Did we ever have this here in Brachot Shabbat? It's for sure Gemara and Sukkah. Yeah, we had it in Brachot. We'll come back to. The Tanan. Hanichnas lebeis hamenuga. The kelev al kseifa v'sandal v'taboisa biyodov. Hu vehem tamei miyad. If someone enters a house that has tzarat, he becomes tamei. Imagine that his clothing is folded up, and some of his clothing is on his shoulders, and he's holding his sandals and his rings. So everything becomes tamei right away, because the Torah says v'habal habayit kol yimei yizkir oto yitma da'aref. Anything that comes into the house is tamei immediately. But hayalavush kilav v'sandalav v'ragalav v'tabotav v'tzvotav. If he's wearing his clothing, and he was wearing his sandals, and he was wearing his rings, so they didn't really enter the house because he entered the house, and they just are nullified to him. They're nullified to him. So hu tamei miyad v'hen teorin ad sheyisheh b'chdei achilat pras. He's tamei right away. And they are tahor until he remains there for the time that it takes to eat a half of a loaf of pat chitin. Chitin, from the word chita, in this pasuk, we learn out that the shiur, that the amount of time is, in order for you to eat a half a loaf of bread made out of chitin. V'lo patzori, but not a coarser bread made out of barley, may save when he is reclining, meaning he's eating it calmly, not in a rush. V'ochel b'liftan, and he's actually dipping it in to the dips, and therefore, and actually reclining and dipping it makes you eat it quicker. Because when you recline, you're not distracted by other things. You're not busy doing other things. You're just concentrating on your meal. And when you dip it into that dip, it makes it go down quicker. And it has to be measured with wheat. How do you know that? When you're there that long, whatever that time is, to eat a half a loaf of bread, okay, that will be the normal meal for an average person. Some say that's 4 eggs, by the way, half a loaf, and some say it's 3 eggs. Machlokes Rashi and Rambam, what a loaf is. If the loaf here is 8 eggs or 6 eggs, and therefore, according to those two opinions, a half a loaf would either be 4 or 3 eggs. For an average man, that's a meal. That's the time that it would take for these things that you're wearing to become tamei. Now, why would it take longer if you're wearing them? Because they don't really have their own identity, and they're batel to the person. And even though the person is tamei right away, but he's tamei av, he's tamei, and now he has to. He's only making them tamei because he's touching them. But how do they become tamei in a direct way from the house? So there's another pasuk that says, "Ve'ochel babayit." If you eat in the home, then yichabes et begadav. So that means that if you stay there as long as it takes to be ochel babayit, then even your clothing now are directly tamei from the home. How much do you have to eat? We measure it by the chita. Okay, so what about Sorah? Sorah teaches you the Tanan. Etzem kisorah metamei b'magav masa ve'eno metamei be'ohel. The bone, a bone of a dead man, can be metamei a person if he touches it or he lifts it up. But and how big does that bone have to be? If you touch it, you lift it. The size of a soda, the size of a barley grain of barley. But ve'eno mitameh be'oil, but it's not mitameh if you're under the same roof. Okay, unlike if you have most of the bones of the man, most of the makeup, then it will be mitameh be'oil. But if you touch it, you're tameh even as long as it's the size of a barley grain. Geffen. What is a geffen? The size of a geffen here. Let me just close the door 1 second. Sorry. What do we learn from Geffen? Geffen, it's the halacha is that a Nazir may not drink any wine and he can't even eat. So how much wine? It's kedei revi'at yayin l'nazir. So the simple pshat here is that if you drank a shear of a revi'at of yayin, you're going to be chayav makot. Okay? Now that is not the way Rashi says it in Brachot and in Sukkah. The way Rashi says it in Brachot and Sukkah and Tosafot over here is that the Geffens teach you as follows: that the Shir Revi'it that we know that you have to partake of Revi'it, we know that from somewhere else. We'll see soon. That Shi'ur, how do you figure out what a Revi'it is? Okay. So a revi'it is a quarter of a log, which is 1.5 eggs. The displacement of wine. Okay. But there's another halacha that a Nazir may not eat the vine, the leaves, or any edible parts of the grape. Now, how much can he eat of them? So as a chidush here, it's not a kazait, it's a revi'it. It's the same amount of liquid, the same amount of solids as you chayav in the liquid. Now, but revi'it is a liquid measure. So how do I measure out a revi'it for eating? And the answer is that what you do is as follows. You take a cup of wine, of geffen. This is what we learned from the pasuk. You take geffen, specifically wine, and you displace a revi'it into, let's say you fill it up, and now you put the leaves that you want to eat, that you're not allowed to eat, in order to measure, to see how much it is. You put those leaves inside the cup of wine, and until it displaces and it pours out a revi'it of wine into another cup. Now, you'd have to put more leaves and more grapes inside if it was wine than if it was measured with water. Because wine is thicker. Okay? And wine has a greater, kippah on top, just keeps getting higher. So in order for it to actually displace or revi'it and pour out, you'd have to put more. So the shear of the revi'it of eating would be larger, which is actually a leniency here, then, right? Because you have to eat more to get the revi'it than if it would be water. How do I know that I measured it with wine? Because it says geffen in the pasuk. Geffen with wine. Te'inam ki grogeret le'ota'at Shabbat. Te'ina, we learn out the word te'ina. That it's a dry te'ina is the shear for carrying food. If you carry food, you do ota'ah on Shabbat, a significant amount would be a dried fig. Rimon, kedetnan, kotli balabatim shurin kirimonim. All normal kalim of a normal people, the shiur of a hole that would actually render them not a receptacle anymore, and now they would become tahor, because they're not a keli, would be the size of a rimon of a pomegranate. But if they're smaller than a pomegranate, then they're still tameh. Okay? Because normally people would not use it anymore once it has this, the hole is that size. Eretz zeit shemen, eretz shekol shiurei kazeitim. A land of oil, of shemen, of oil, olive oil, that teaches you that all of these shiurim in the Torah are kazayit. Kol shiurei sakataitach. All the shiurim vayika hani daman. We just said a whole bunch of things that don't work with the kazayit. They work with a chita, a gefen, a te'ena, and a rimon. The Torah is saying, Eretz, this is a land that the majority of the halachot in the Torah are kizayit. Okay? For example, if you eat chaylev, it's a kizayit. Dam, kizayit. Notar, leftovers of a carbon, is a kizayit. Pigul, the wrong thoughts of a carbon, and you eat that carbon, the shiur, the measurement to be chayav, is a kizayit. Nevela, it wasn't slaughtered, kizayit. Behema tumeya, you eat pork, chas v'shalom. Someone eats pork. Or tuma. How much is tuma of basar or tuma of a met? A kazayit. So most of the things are kazayit. Dvash is honey, which are dates. The size of a date, okay, which a large date, kosevet hagata, is the size that you'll be chayav karet, or bring a chatat b'shogeg if you ate that size of food on Yom Kippur. That's what we learn. So the Gemara says, one second. So the Gemara is answering as follows. You asked me, how could I say shiur and halacha l'Moshe Sinai? We learn it from this pasuk. Says the Gemara, do you really think we learn these shiurim from this pasuk? No way. Does it say clearly when it says the word chita, that's the shear that if you walk into a house that has tarat and you eat half a loaf, where does it say that in the word chita? How'd you get that? So obviously, obviously what the Braita said was right. Meaning, it's really halacha l'Moshe Sinai, everything we just said in this pasuk. But the Chachamim, they just use this pasuk as an asmachta to teach us these halacha l'Moshe Sinai. Okay? In order to remember them. So the Gemara then says, Chatzitzin, what was the next part of the Braita? So that shiurin are halacha l'Moshe Sinai. And what was the next part? The interposes are also halacha l'Moshe Sinai. Says the Gemara. Is an interpose really halacha l'Moshe Sinai? Chatzitzin do'iraisa ninu. Chatzitzin are do'iraita. We know them from the Torah. D'chtiv rachatz v'alayim et kol b'saro. And the Braita says, for the fact that it says you should wash yourself in water at kol b'saro, that's mashma, that sounds like shelo yehei davar chotzitz ben b'saro l'mayim. That there should be nothing that's interposing between your flesh and the water. Meaning that if there's a chatzitz and intervals between your body and the water, it's not a proper tefillah. Because it says, it's called bisaro b'mayim. Why did it have to say that? Just say, wash yourself in the water. It means that every part of your flesh has to be touching the water. Okay? There should be nothing between bisaro and mayim. So the Gemara says, b'mayim, what does b'mayim teach you? B'may mikvah. It doesn't say b'mayim chayim. It says b'mayim in water, and even gathered water. Kol bistaro, mayim shekol gufo ola behen. All of your flesh teaches you what is kol bistaro. Means that the mikveh has to be the size that your entire body, all the bistaro, fits in once. V'kamahen. How much is that? Amma al amma berum shalosh amot. 1 amma by 1 amma, with the height of 3 amot. That is the shir of men. The shir of chachamim mei mikveh arba'im sa'ah. And the chachamim said that equals 40 sa'ah. A sa'ah is 144 eggs. So times 40, I think it's 5760 amount of eggs, the volume. Anyways, what do we see here? That the chatzitza halacha is learned out of a pasuk, not halacha mishum Sinai. So the Gemara answers, ki yitzchak chata l'sa'aro. The halacha mishum Sinai was teaching you another halacha. That what? Not only your flesh, but even your hair has to be in the water. There can't be an interpose. Uchid Rabbi bar Avhuna. The Amar Rabbi bar Avhuna nima achat kshura chotzetzet. One hair that's tied, made a knot in one of your hairs, that's a chatzitza. Shalosh, but if you tie three together, that knot won't be so tight and the water will get through. Eina chatzitza. Shtayim eini yodea. Two is tighter than three, but it's looser than one, and I'm not sure if that is a chatzitza, an interpose or not. So the halacha that he taught us, that one here is tight enough to be an interpose, that is a halacha l'Moshe Sinai. That we wouldn't know from the pasuk, because the pasuk only spoke about the flesh. So the Gemara says, what are you talking about? Sa'ara nami doraisa. Even the here is a doraita. The Tanya v'rachat et kol b'saro. Et, that word et is extra, teaches you hatafel b'saro, anything that is subordinate to the basar. V'zehu, namely, what is that? Seyar. So therefore, Seyar is really included in the pasuk too. So the Gemara says, Ki ata hilchata, you're right. What is the halacha mishum Sinai? Therefore, l'reuba u'lemi'uta u'lemakpid u'l'she'ein makpid. For the halachas of the majority, minority, and what you're particular about and what you're not particular about. Uchid Rabbi Yitzchak, da'am Rabbi Yitzchak dvar Torah rubi u'makpid u'lav choytzes u'she'ein makpid u'lav eino choytzes. Midoraita, the only thing that is really an interpose is if there's a chatzitza on the majority of the person, and the person cares about it, and he wants to remove that interpose. Let's say he's dirty, and he wants to remove that. So when he goes into the mikveh, that's a real chatzitza midoraita. But if it's missing any of those two components, meaning, if he doesn't care about it, or even if he does care about it, but it's only on the mind, not the majority of his body, that doesn't ruin the tefillah. Because since he has the majority of his body, everything's fine. We view it as if the whole body's in there. The gazru, but we needed the halacha l'Moshe Sinai to teach you that. That is what the halacha l'Moshe Sinai taught you. We know about interposes from the Torah, but the measurements that you need to be the majority of the body and that the person has to be particular about it, that is only learned from the halacha l'Moshe Sinai. Because rubo sheino makpid mishum rubo makpid, and the Chachamim made a gzeira that even if it's not on even if you don't care about it, but if it's on the majority of your body, it's a chatzitza mishum rubo makpid, because of cases that look similar to that, where it's on the majority of the body and you do care, which would be a problem midoraita. And even when it's on the minority of your body, if you care about it, they said that will be too similar to the cases where it's on the majority of your body and you care about it. And therefore, as long as you care about it, that's also a chatzitza. So the Chachamim said, if any of those two components are here, it's a problem as well. And it's only not a problem when it's on the minority of your body and you don't care about it. So the Gemara says, why don't the Chachamim make a gzeira even when you don't have any of those two components? Even if it's on, you don't care about it and it's on the minority of your body, because it's similar to the other gzeira where it's on the minority of your body and you do care. Or it's similar to when it's on the majority of your body that you don't care. So the Gemara says that's already he gufa gzeira. Those themselves are gzeirot that now make him v'nigz gzeira l'gzeira. We're not going to come and make a drabanan on a drabanan. So let's just finish off very quickly here. The Gemara says, "Mechitzo deoraita ninu." Why do you tell me that partitions, the halacha of the partitions are halacha Moshe Sinai? The Omar Mar, because we learned in the Braita, Aaron. How do we know it's the Braita? The Braita says that Aaron was 9 tefachim high, and that is the pasuk of the Torah. It says it was 1.5 amot, and an amah is 6 tefachim, Rabotai. So 1.5 is 9. The kaporet, the lid, the golden lid on top, the cover, tefach, is 1 tefach. That the Gemara learns that in Sukkah. So it's Arei Kanasara. And therefore the Chachamim said that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm going to tell it to you quickly, because the Gemara over here is also being very concise, not like the Gemara in Sukkah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't rest on this earth. Okay? So he rests above, between the Kruvim, Me'al Gabi HaKaporet, on top of the Kaporet. Okay? So, why? Because he comes to the closest place he could come to earth. So we see that the closest place is above 10 tefachim. So from there we also can derive that since HaKadosh Baruch Hu won't come to the earth because of the haaretz natan livnei adam, and the height of the earth, as seen over here from the Aron, was 10 tefachim. So obviously, every partition. What is the purpose? What is the partition really doing? It's enclosing someone the entire height of the earth, right? On all 4 sides. So you have to get the whole height of that area. So since my area is this spot on earth, and the height of that area goes 10 tefachim. So here we have it. We have a pasuk from the Aron. We can derive from the Torah. We don't need halacha Moshe Sinai that a partition should be 10 tefachim. So the Gemara answers, Lo tzricha el Rabbi Yehuda, the Omer amat binyan be'amat bat shitcha, amat kelim be'amat bat chamisha. There are 2 types of amot, large and small, 6 and 5. So those that were about the building of the Mishkan were 6 tefachim. But the kelim of the Mishkan, like the Aron and the Mizbech and the Shulchan, whenever it says an amah in the Torah, it means 5 tefachim. So if the Torah says that the Aron was 1.5 amot, 1 amah is 5 tefachim, half amah is 2.5. So the height of the Aron was only 7.5. And then you had the 1 tefach of the kaporet, so that was now up to 8.5. So you wouldn't know now that the partition would be 10. You would think it's 8.5, right? So therefore, I need halacha Moshe Sinai according to Rabbi Yehuda to tell you that it's actually 10. So the Gemara says, but according to Rabbi Meir, all of the amot were average ones because they were 6. They were not small ones of 5. And why do they call them average, not large? Because there are some cases that they're even larger than 6. We're not going to speak about it right now. So according to Rabbi Meir, obviously the Torah already taught you that it's 10 tefachim high. The Rabbi Meir kiyate hilchatel legud ulelavud uledofen aku. According to Rabbi Meir, you know what the halacha Moshe Sinai taught you? Not the halachot of partitions being 10 tefachim high. That we know from the Torah. It taught you the halacha of good asik. Good asik means that whenever you have a partition that's already rendered and it's considered a real partition, like it's 10 tefachim high, now if you need it in halacha, you can pull it up magically. Not magically, halacha Moshe Sinai. That is what we learned. Another halacha that Hashem told Moshe is lavud. Lavud means any 2 things in building. They need to be together. As long as they're within 3 tefachim of each other, they are considered like attached. And the dofen akuma is that if you need a wall to be attached to the schach of your sukkah, but it's not because the schach that's next to that wall is actually this not schach pasul, but I need this wall to be near this schach over here, so we consider the roof, the schach pasul, as it's part of this wall. It's one big bent wall. How many amot do you have to do that? Can you just do it forever? No. You have up to 4 amot. Who told you? The whole halacha that you can bend the wall and how much it goes is all learned out. Halacha l'Moshe Sinai. Chazaku Baruch. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for this very long shiur. It was not so simple at the beginning. By the way, I want to tell you something, Amnon. Can I speak to you for a second?
Yeah, sure.
I'm saying without being on the...
Yeah, you want me to call you?
Okay, I'll call you, yeah. Call Tuv.
Okay.